A wife shouldn't use my toilet. A bad wife like you isn't a family member, and yet you're a woman who comes into the house with a face that looks like a matter of course. I don't know if there's a single word to thank you for letting other people live here. Thank you. Hey, I can't hear you. More than that, how long are you going to sit there? It's horrible that you're touching the house, you dirty. You're so dirty, and the air is also bad because of you. From now on, use the toilet and bath outside, that's enough for you. At this time, none of the public baths are open. What are you talking about? There's a park right there, isn't there? There's a toilet and a faucet over there, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't let you in my house. Saying that, my mother-in-law locked me out of the front door. The story goes back a little bit. After marrying my husband, Colin, we lived with my parents-in-law because we both worked. Even before marriage, I occasionally appeared at my parents-in-law's house, and each time, my father-in-law treated me kindly and petted me like a real daughter. I lost my father when I was young, and I thought of my father-in-law as my real father. However, just before the marriage, my father-in-law fell ill and was hospitalized by the time we started living together. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, hits me coldly in contrast to my father-in-law. She was smiling and calm in front of my father-in-law, and she didn't do anything to me. When my father-in-law was gone, she said, "The food is too heavily seasoned, do you want to make me sick?" When you get close, the air gets worse, she said, which is close to abusiveness. She was a full-time housewife and was always at home, so the time to be alone with my mother-in-law was the hardest time. I don't want to go home, so I end up working more than usual. I continue to work overtime every day, and her sarcasm becomes more and more. Before I knew it, she was whispering to me every time she saw my face, and she was sighing intently. One day, when I came home from work, I frowned on my mother-in-law as usual. "Don't walk around the house with such a dirty body," I was told. I was hungry, so I wanted to eat dinner first, but I had no choice but to go to the dressing room to take a bath. However, my mother-in-law, who was standing in front of the dressing room, looked at me and raised her eyebrows in disgust. "I don't think you're going to use my bath." "What? But you told me to clean it off." "Come clean up outside, how dare you use my bath?" "It's outside, nothing is open near here at this time. If you go farther, you'll find somewhere open, so check it out for yourself. You know, I'm a clean freak. I can't stand other people being at home in the first place, but it makes me feel bad to be in the same house because it's unhygienic. That's too much. What do you tell me to do? If you stay at home, I'm going to get dirty. You are not my family, so take a bath and use the toilet outside." How do I get to the bathroom? It's noisy, there's no toilet in the park. There will be water in the park and in the baths, so don't be lazy and get out of here. Saying that, she pushes my back. I was kicked out of the house and the front door closed, and I stared at the door in a daze. It was common for me to be told abusive remarks, but this was the first time I had ever seen something like this. As expected, I thought that I would be allowed to use the bath tomorrow, so I finished that day at an internet cafe a few stops away. But this idea of mine was too naive. Even after many days, I was not allowed to use the bath or toilet. I went to the public bath from my salary, and I used the toilet at a nearby park every day. However, my mother-in-law was not satisfied with that, and his rant did not end there. At the end of the day, she said, "Since I let you live in my house, it would make sense to give the money you earn to me." Rent, she said, "and you are a very lowly person to sleep in for free." I wanted my mother, who lives alone in the countryside, to supplement her life as much as possible, so I earned money by sending money, but I couldn't refuse her enthusiasm and decided to give my salary. Colin also watched how I was treated, but he always put my mother first. No matter how cold I go out to use the restroom, he pretends not to see it. On the contrary, my mother-in-law and my husband sometimes laughed at me. Even after more than half a year of living together, the treatment does not improve, but rather gets worse day by day. Why do I have to be treated like this? I thought about it so many times. However, Colin is on the side of his mother, and her father is in the hospital. I don't want my mother to worry about me because she used to suffer from mental illness in the past. There was no one around to turn to. In the end, I couldn't talk to anyone, and I had no choice but to put up with unreasonable treatment every day. If I'm at home, it's hard to stay at home because I'm always told what I should do. But I give all the money I earn to my mother-in-law, and of course I don't have any pocket money from Colin, so I can't kill time outside. In addition, my mother-in-law sometimes complained that I was late coming home because I was doing the housework on behalf of my mother-in-law, who did not do housework, and I couldn't go home. I couldn't buy new clothes or go to the hairdresser, so my body and mind were in tatters every day. Sometimes, I was looking forward to going to the public bath with the little money I had left on hand after work, but she would complain if I cut corners on housework, and I had financial problems. I couldn't afford to go to the public bath every day, and my body gradually began to itch and other ailments. One day, when I was going to the park to use the restroom as usual, I saw my father-in-law. Speaking of which, when I remembered the schedule in my head, my father-in-law, who was recovering from his physical condition, said that today was the day that the hospital gave him permission to stay overnight. I was going to pick him up later, but apparently my father-in-law came back here on his own. He had a gentle smile that did not change in his smile, and talked to me in the same way as before. "Miranda, what's going on here?" I was about to go to the bathroom. "Is there a toilet at home? Is it out of order?" "No, it's not like that." "Something happened to you?" If I tell my kind father-in-law about how I've been treated at home now, he will surely be worried. I didn't want to worry about it. However, I couldn't stand the urge to urinate, so I told him what I had done so far. I'm not a family member, so I've been told not to use the restroom or bath at home. What? My mother-in-law is a clean freak, so she can't stand me using the bathroom and bath at home. Doesn't Colin say anything when you say that? He is on good terms with his mouth, so he didn't do anything. I see. With a big sigh, my father-in-law bowed to me. "Let's go home together. I'm sorry for what they've done so far." My father-in-law's words almost loosened my tense feelings. I managed to hold back the tears that were about to spill out, and after finishing the bathroom for the time being, I went home with him. He returned home and gathered my mother-in-law and Colin in the living room. At first, my mother-in-law was happy to see my father-in-law return home after a long absence, but she tilted her head to my father-in-law, who looked strange. "I've heard about it from Miranda." "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. You didn't let her use the toilet or bath at home because she wasn't in our family. That's... On top of that, you took away all of Miranda's salary, didn't you?" "Why do you know that?" My mother-in-law glared at me. However, my father-in-law got between me and her and hid it from her. "You should reflect on what you have done to Miranda." Yes, Miranda is a stranger, but she is the one who married our son and tried to be our family. Instead of treating her with gratitude, you treated her so badly. I think we originally became a family of strangers. She is a stranger, hence you need to take care of her more, but what are you doing right now? And Colin. What? Colin's body shakes when his name is called. You're Miranda's husband, and you're the wrong person to protect. Don't protect your mother forever, protect your wife, that's the husband's job. But. No excuse, you're an adult, it's time to get away from your parents. Perhaps completely frightened by the appearance of his father, who is calm but certainly angry, Colin glances at his mother. I didn't mean to disrespect her, right? At his snarling words, his mother looked at him for a moment, and then immediately turned to my father-in-law. No, Colin said that if Miranda doesn't use the bathroom or bath at home, the water bill will go up, and the daughter-in-law's salary is ours, so I'm going to take all of it. I said I couldn't do that, poor thing, but he insisted. Hey, Mom, what are you talking about? I didn't want to do it, but I just did it because he told me to. Don't say anything arbitrary. You said you can't stand Miranda using the plumbing. It was you who started saying that if you could use Miranda's salary freely, you'd go out more. Well, I can't believe that you're going to start saying that to your own mother. Mother-in-law and Colin begin to rub sins against each other. I couldn't keep up with the scene in front of me, and I could only stare blankly without saying anything. The two of them, who tell each other that they are not bad, have no vestiges of the good relationship they used to have, and they are ugly. Next to him, his father-in-law sighed heavily. Enough, I know how you guys feel. Without a single apology to Miranda, tell each other that you're not bad, and know a little shame. Get both of you out of the house right now. He said so, and quickly kicked his wife and Colin out of the house. After that, he exchanged with my mother-in-law and Colin several times, but instead of reflecting on it, she only complained to me and my father-in-law about the grudge of being kicked out of the house. My father-in-law and I, who were completely disgusted by my mother-in-law and Colin, decided to divorce and isolate ourselves. When the divorce was decided, I was called by my father-in-law and he bowed politely to me. The reason why my wife has become so selfish and has come to act like a selfish face, and why Colin's life has come to revolve around her mother, is because I have lived my life with work as my priority. The other day I was talking to her about my family, but I wasn't a good enough husband or father to talk about my family. Because I was a husband who didn't care about my family, I wanted Colin to have a good family with Miranda by using me as a teacher. Father-in-law. What a selfish story, I'm so sorry, Miranda. It's my fault, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to give this house to you. Father-in-law, please raise your head, it's not your fault. Besides, this house is also an important house for you, full of memories, isn't it? But I want you to apologize for something, because we really bothered you. Then would you like to have a meal with me sometime? Is that okay with you? Yes, I lost my father when I was young, so I thought of you as my real father. That's why I want to continue to get along with you. He nodded at my words with a troubled and joyful expression. Then I moved into an apartment and started living alone. My father-in-law, who was safely discharged from the hospital, seems to have started living at home, and I'm often invited by my father-in-law to enjoy eating while talking about the latest situation. As we talked, he told me that he wanted to meet my mother. When I think about it, he only met my mother at the wedding, and he and my mother have not seen each other since then. I divorced Colin, but I thought it might be a good idea for the three of us to have a meal together once if I was going to continue my relationship with my father-in-law in the future. Then, about 3 months after the divorce, me, my mother, and my father-in-law had a meal. Unexpectedly, my mother and father-in-law seemed to get along, and the dinner party ended happily. I couldn't meet the two families before the marriage because of his physical condition and my mother's schedule, and I was only able to give a simple greeting at the wedding. That's why we rarely had conversations, but my mother and father-in-law were close in age and had similar hobbies, so they talked quite a bit, and before I knew it, they were meeting without me. The two of them quickly became closer, and now my father-in-law is really my father. I can still see the two of them who were a little embarrassed to ask if it's okay to marry. At that time, I was so surprised, smiling, and happy that I couldn't help but cry. My mother also moved out of the countryside, and I moved out of my apartment, and the three of us lived together in that house. On the other hand, Colin and his mother-in-law, according to what I heard from my father-in-law, managed to live together. It seems that Colin is working hard to support his mother, but his relationship with his mother, who is selfish and complains about this and that, seems to be deteriorating day by day. Since I was gone, my mother-in-law's brunt seems to have turned all its attention to Colin. Recently, it seems that he lost the energy to work due to the stress of working overtime and the stress of living with his mother at home, and quit his job without consulting his mother. It seems that his mother was angry with him, but she said that he could not live without someone working, so she raised her heavy waist and her mother-in-law began to work. She has always been a full-time housewife and has a naive side, seems to be repeatedly unable to get the job she wants, and repeatedly retiring as soon as she gets a job. Even now, my father-in-law is contacted by Colin and my mother-in-law from time to ask if he can help them, but he refuses all of them. My father-in-law looked at me and my mother and said gently, "My mother and Fletcher are my old family, but it is this family that I have to cherish now. Besides," he continues, "if I could teach them anything, it would be to go through the hard work and make them aware of their pain. If we were a little kinder to people, maybe there would be someone who could help those two people." My father-in-law said a little sadly, "I'm sure there will be many difficulties in the future, but I would like to cultivate a heart that cares about others without forgetting to be kind to others. And I want to build a kind, gentle and wonderful family like my mother and father-in-law."